Magandang araw po. Kami po mula sa Imus Bureau of Fire Protection ay nakahandang rumesponde sa sunog at sakuna. Nasagawa po tayo sa pagkakataong ito ng tinatawag na Fire Safety Webinar. Ito ay upang mapalawig pa rin ang kaalaman at tuloy na kahandaan ng mamamayan laban sa mapinsanang sunog. Tignan po natin ang objective ng ating seminar. The objectives of our fire safety webinar includes to acquire basic knowledge on the nature and behavior of fire, to be familiar with the proper response procedures during fire emergencies, and to increase awareness on fire safety and be more prepared in case of a fire incident. Ganito po ang magiging pagkakasunod-sunod ng ating pagtatalakay. BFP History, Nature and Behavior of Fire, Classes of Fire, Parts and use of fire extinguisher, fire evacuation drill and emergency procedure, and fire safety tips.
I am Fire Officer 1, Melchor A. Tango Jr., and I will be discussing the history of PP. Through the enactment of the Republic Act 6975, also known as the DILG of 1990, the Fire Service was separated by the PCIP, a separated and distinct agency of Bureau of Fire Protection on August 2, 1991. Number 1, BP is mandated to prevent and suppress destructive fires, conduct investigation, provide emergency medical and rescue service, enforce the Republic Act 9514. Number 2, revise Fire Code of the Philippines and its implementing rules and regulation. Number 3, Republic Act 9514. Number 4, Fire Safety Inspection. And number 5, Fire Safety Seminar. Number 6, Fire Drills. Number 7, Fire Brigades for establishment employing at least 50 persons. Vision: a modern fire service capable of ensuring a fire-safe nation by 2034. Mission: we commit to prevent and suppress destructive fires, investigate its cause, enforce the fire code, and other related laws, and respond to man-made and natural disasters and other emergencies.
I am Fire Officer 2 Lee Robert M. Libelo, and I will be discussing nature of fire. According to Republic Act 9514, it is the active principle of burning characterized by the heat and light of combustion. It is a rapid oxidation process accompanied with the evolution of light and heat of varying intensities. Fire is the visible effect of the process of combustion, a special type of chemical reaction. The fuel must be heated to its ignition temperature for combustion to occur. The reaction will keep going as long as there is heat, fuel, and oxygen. This is known as the tetrahedron of fire. The illustration shows the tetrahedron of fire. The triangle illustrates three elements a fire needs to ignite: heat, fuel, and oxidizing agent, usually oxygen. For many years, the concept of fire was symbolized with a triangle of combustion and represented heat, fuel, and oxygen. Further, fire research determined that the fourth element, a chemical chain reaction, was a necessary component of fire. The fire triangle was changed to a fire tetrahedron to reflect its fourth element. A tetrahedron can be described as pyramid, which is solid and having four plane faces. Essentially, all four elements must be present for the fire to occur. Removal of any of these essential elements will result in the fire being extinguished. What is heat? Heat is a form of energy that can be transferred from one object to another, or even created at the expense of loss of other forms of energy. What is fuel? Fuel is a material that can be burned to produce heat, light, or power. It can be solids, liquids, or gases. Examples of fuel includes wood, coal, natural gas, and oil. What is oxygen? Oxygen is the chemical element with the symbol O and atomic number 8. It is a member of the chalcogen group in the periodic table. It is a highly reactive nonmetal and an oxidizing agent that readily forms oxides with most elements as well as with other compounds. It is the most abundant of all elements found in nature, which constitutes 20.95% or 21% of the Earth's atmosphere. What is chemical reaction? Chemical reaction is the fourth element of fire tetrahedron. When heat, fuel, and an oxidizing agent, usually oxygen, are present and combined in the right mixture, when ignites, a fire naturally occurs. Theoretically, if you remove any of the essential elements, the fire will be extinguished. What are the stages of fire? Number 1. Incipient stage. This is the initial stage or beginning stage in which can be controlled or extinguished by portable fire extinguishers. Class 2 standpipe or small hose system without the need for protective clothing or breathing apparatus. Number 2. Growth stage. The growth stage occurs when the fire establishes itself and burning self-sufficiently. We call this established burning. At this point, the fire is generating enough of its own heat to cause a positive heat feedback loop. Here, the fire is using its own heat to cause combustion of surrounding fuel sources. Number 3. Fully developed stage. When the growth stage has reached its max and all combustible materials have been ignited, a fire is considered fully developed. This is the hottest phase of fire and the most dangerous for anybody trapped within. Number 4. Decay stage. Usually the longest stage of a fire. It characterizes a significant decrease in oxygen or fuel, putting an end to the fire. The common dangers during this stage are the existence of non-flaming combustibles, which can potentially start a new fire if not fully extinguished. Conclusion. Fires go through key stages. A firefighter will often assess the stage of fire when they arrive at the fire scene, so they are aware of the likely behavior of the fire and how best to extinguish or contain the fire. However, every stage of fire is very dangerous. Human safety is paramount, which is why firefighters are the best people to be present during a fire. That ends my discussion regarding the nature of fire. Thank you.
I'm FO1 Alfred B. Alcantara, and I will discuss classes of fire. Classification of fire. A fire is classified according to the fuel it consumes. Different fuel type means different ways of extinguishment. Class A. Ordinary combustible or fibrous materials such as wood, paper, cloth, rubber, and some plastics. Class B. Flammable or combustible liquids such as gasoline, kerosene, paint, thinner, and propane. Class C. Energized electrical equipment such as appliances, box, and power tools. Class D. Combustible metals such as magnesium, titanium, potassium, and sodium. They may react violently with water and other chemicals and must be handled with care. Class A. Fire involves combustible cooking fluids such as oils and fats.
What is fire extinguisher? A fire extinguisher is a portable device that discharges a jet of water, foam, gas, or other materials to extinguish a fire. It is also an active fire protection device used to extinguish or control small fires, often in emergency situations. It is not intended for use on an out-of-control fire such as one which has reached the ceiling, endangers the user, or otherwise requires the expertise of a fire brigade. Parts and functions of a fire extinguisher. Discharge lever, discharge locking pin and seal, discharge hose, discharge nozzle, discharge orifice, pressure gauge, carrying handle, data plate, and last is the body.
Classes of fire extinguisher. The illustration shows the different classes of fire and what type of fire extinguisher must be used with each corresponding class of fire. For Class A, combustible materials, example, paper and wood. The type of fire extinguishers that are allowed are water, foam, dry powder, and wet chemical. For Class B, flammable liquids, example, paint and petrol. The type of fire extinguishers that are allowed are foam, dry powder, and carbon dioxide. For Class C, flammable gases, example, butane and methane. Only dry powder type of fire extinguisher is allowed. For Class D, flammable metals, example, lithium and potassium. The type of fire extinguisher that is allowed is dry powder. For electrical equipments, example, computers and generators, dry powder and carbon dioxide type of fire extinguishers are allowed. And last, for Class F or Class K, deep fat fryers, example, chip pans. The wet chemical type of fire extinguisher is the only one that is allowed. Again, for the recap, Type A fire extinguishers are used in combustible materials such as cloth, wood, rubber, paper, and plastics. Type B fire extinguishers are used in flammable liquids such as gasoline, grease, and oil. For electrical fires, we use Type C. For combustible metals, we use Type D. And last, for kitchen fires, we use Type K. How to use fire extinguisher. In using a fire extinguisher, remember the letters P, A, S, S, or the word pass. Number 1, pull the pin. Number 2, aim at the base of fire. Number 3, squeeze the lever. And number 4, sweep side to side.
I'm Fire Officer 2, James Luther Nones, and I will be discussing the importance of fire drill and the structure of fire brigade, their organization, and their function. Fire drill plays a very important role in the workplace. It is part of the fire safety procedure. Fire drill helps for the employee to respond quickly, calmly, and safely. By performing a fire drill, it will give the employee or the building occupants the chance to practice the instruction that have been imparted by the firefighters. It is a method of practicing how the building would be evacuated in the event of fire and other emergencies. For the members of fire brigade in a company or industry, they have a chance to practice what is required to them.
Organization of Fire Brigade.
Fire Marshal. During emergencies, the Fire Marshal shall have complete monitoring and supervision of the situation. The Fire Marshal must be able to immediately set up a command post. The Fire Marshal must immediately have an available copy of a floor plan or layout of the building. The Fire Marshal should regularly organize fire safety seminars and drills for the building's fire brigade and occupants. Assistant Brigade Marshal. During an emergency, the Assistant Brigade Marshal should take charge of the situation in the absence of a Fire Marshal. Must provide full assistance to the Fire Marshal in the supervision of a fire brigade. Communication Team. Upon confirmation that the fire is positive, the assigned communication team must immediately call the nearest fire station or any provided emergency hotline. Must always be prepared to give a public address in case of evacuation. Firefighting Team. Must have at least 4 members to act as nozzleman, backup, lineman, and valve operator. Upon verification of a reported fire, the first responder must bring a fire extinguisher and a handheld radio. They are responsible in immediately informing the fire marshal or the communication team if the fire is positive. Must be able to provide quick assessment if the fire is uncontrollable. Evacuation Team. Must have at least 2 members per floor. They are responsible for providing full assistance on the proper evacuation of all the occupants of the building. Should be familiar with all the entry and exit points of the building, including the designated evacuation area. Security or Traffic Team. All security personnel are automatically designated as security or traffic team members. Should know the roles and responsibilities of all the fire brigade members. During a fire emergency, one security personnel must serve as a fireman's guide and assist the responding BFF personnel on the exact location of the fire scene. The team must ensure the safety of the evacuation area and assist the police in the crowd control. All the members are required to be familiar with the layout of the building, giving much emphasis on the location of the utility rooms and tenants storing high hazard equipment. Rescue Team. Once the evacuation signal or the alarm sounded, the rescue team shall conduct initial search and rescue procedures on the building. Must immediately bring the victims at the designated first aid station. Salvage Team. During the fire emergency, the salvage team is responsible for saving savable properties within the fire scene, or those properties that can be saved from further damage or to lessen the amount of damage. First Aid Team. Responsible for the proper and immediate application of basic first aid to the victim. Must monitor the hospitals wherein the victims were brought. Should be properly trained in basic first aid and CPR. Fire safety personnel. Responsible for the daily monitoring and inspection of all the fire safety features of the building. In case the sprinkler system activates during the fire incident, they must be on standby on the involved isolation valve for an immediate shut-off after the declaration of fire out by the BFP.
A fire brigade must remember to determine the specific fire floor, begin the control of evacuation, search of the fire floor and all floors above the fire, gain control of building systems, and last, confine and extinguish the fire.
And that's the end of my discussion regarding fire drill and importance of safety organization structure. Thank you.
Magandang araw po sa inyo lahat. Ako po si Esipote Sandy Alhambra ng Imus City Fire Station. So nandito po ako ngayon para magbigay po sa inyo ng konting fire safety tips. Unang-una po, kailangan po natin magkaroon po ng numero ng mga emergency numbers katulad po ng bumbero, ng pulis, ng doktor sa ating mga tahanan nang sa ganon, madali po tayo makatawag ng saklolo kung kinakailangan. Pangalawa po, dapat po yung pong mga posporo ay itago po natin sa mga bata or wag po nating hayaan na pakalat-kalat. And then yung naman pong kandila, kung hindi naman po maiiwasan na gagamit, ilagay na lang po sa isang lugar na hindi po makakapinsala, katulad po ng mesa or ano man kung sakali po siya ay matumba. So yun naman pong mga upos ng sigarilyo po natin, dahil yan po ay isa sa mga pinagmumulan po ng sunog, dapat po hindi po natin siya itatapon kung saan-saan. So, siguraduhin po natin na napatay po natin yung ating mga ubos ng sigarilyo. Okay? Sunod po, kung sa sunog naman po, dapat po dapat po tayo ay mag-stay low. So, paano po stay low? Dapat po nasa baba po tayo nung habang lumalabas po tayo gumagapang. Nang sa ganun po, yung usok po kasi noon ay nasa taas. So, yung pong ilalim ay meron pa pong space doon na pwede po tayo makahinga para po tayo ay makalabas ng ligtas. Okay? Sa pagluluto naman po, dapat po lagi po nating babantayan, wag po natin siyang iiwanan. Nang sa ganun po, hindi po magkaroon ng sunog dahil pagka iniwanan po natin yan, hindi po natin mamamalayan, lumalaki na po pala yung apoy doon sa ating kusina. Okay? And then yung meron naman din po tayong tinatawag na octopus connection. So yung pong octopus connection po natin yung pong pagsaksak po ng mga appliances sa isang saksakan. So magkakaroon po ng overloading doon, magkakaroon po ng sanhi ng sunog. Isa pa po, huwag po nating papalitan ng mga yung fuse natin, hindi natin papalitan ng tinatawag natin yung mga barya, wire, o naman ng metal na kailangan para po mapagana natin siya. So dapat ang gagamitin lang po natin doon ay fuse. Sa atin naman pong mga tahanan, dapat po natin ipapractice yung ating tinatawag na EDIT. Ano po yung EDIT? EDIT stands for Exit Drill Inside the Home. So yun po ay lagi po natin gagawin, katulad po ng sa eskwelahan o sa mga establishment, nagkakaroon po tayo ng drill. So doon po, kailangan po nating mag-drill sa bahay natin na sa ganon, alam po natin kung saan tayo pupunta at alam po natin kung saan po natin hahanapin yung mga kasamahan natin sa bahay. So lalong-lalo na po yung mga bata, usually po pagka may sunog, ang mga bata ay nagtatago po sa ilalim ng mesa or kung di man po ay doon sa loob po ng banyo. So para maiwasan po natin yon, lahat po ay dapat lagi pong lalabas at ipaperform po natin yung edit. So dapat po natin siyang i-practice. Doon naman po sa ating mga flammable liquid, so kung hanggat maaari po, huwag po tayo mag-imbak niyan. Dahil yan po ay pwedeng pagmulan ng ating sunog. So kabilang na rin po dyan yung mga paglilinis nating bahay. So wag po tayo mag-imbak ng masyadong maraming mga papel, ng mga plastic. So kung nakailangan po ay dispose na natin siya or ibenta po para po mapakinabangan pa. So yun lang po yung ating mga safety tips.